Hi, this is
Yes.
Kevin Jackson, National Developmental Coach. I'm here with Coach Bobby Douglas with Moments Off the Mat. First of all, I just want to introduce Coach Douglas. I've known Coach Douglas since 1982. My senior year, was recruited to Arizona State by Coach. He's always been a hero of mine, and just want to recognize him for the things that he's done within our sport. I think sometimes media outlets, they kind of pick and choose who they want to celebrate as legends or heroes or do stories on, and I think Coach Douglas is the person that we should all know his history and the things that he's gone through. He's a 5-time national champion, a 2-time Olympian, a silver medalist and bronze medalist at the World Championships. He's coached numerous All-Americans, NCAA champions, world champions, Olympic champions. He was a coach of Arizona State in 1988 when they won their national championship, the only school out west to accomplish that goal. Just as truly honored to be on the call with Coach. And just check this out. He's accumulated athletic career record of 303, 17, and 7. Just unbelievable. Graduate of Oklahoma State. He's received his master's at Arizona State. Coach, it's an honor to speak with you today, and glad you're able to make the call.
Well, likewise, Coach Jackson. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, and anytime we're talking wrestling, you know it's going to be fun.
Right on, Coach. Just right now, we're it's some tough times right now in society for everyone, especially athletes. But how are you doing? How's the family doing? Bobo and Jackie, how you guys doing there in Ames?
We're doing all right. The weather is cooperating with us. A little bit of rain, a little bit of snow, a lot of Iowa weather, and we're used to it. We've been here a while, and we're around good people. We're around some great wrestling programs, and in the center of the United States, where wrestling really got its birth in many ways at the heart and soul, Iowa, and having come from Ohio and wrestled in West Virginia and Oklahoma, I'm a very proud American wrestler.
Right on, Coach. I wish we could see you. I know the computer's down right now, but I wish we could see you. I'm over here looking like the Wolf Man, and you're behind closed doors. So, but again, we appreciate you being on the call. How's Jackie doing? I've always, admired Jackie and her commitment to the sport, and I felt like she was always equal in terms of commitment and devotion and sacrifices that she's made throughout your career for your success, and just want to make sure that Jackie's okay, and how is she doing, and maybe you can talk a little bit about her support over the years.
Well, thank you for asking, Kevin. She's doing pretty good. She's had some issues with her health, but we're at that stage in our lives now when that's going to happen. We're fortunate to have lived as long as we've lived and live in the wrestling environment with the wrestling family. It's not only made us very proud of what we've been able to accomplish as a family, and being a part of the world's greatest wrestling country has also made me doubly proud. I'll let you tell about some of the experiences we had, but America has always been discriminated against in the wrestling arena. As you know, you were one of the victims, but wrestling's also been one of the greatest contributions to American wrestling to American history. 5 or 6 presidents, and so many people that have led America, soldiers, teachers, parents, and I was very fortunate to have had an opportunity to work and train and observe guys like yourself, and the guys who are on the team. It's the who's of American wrestling. We were there when it was very difficult for America to win a medal, and you guys came through and were able to do it in spite of some of the handicaps that we had. And you are you are and will always be a part of Olympic history and American history. And you've done a tremendous job at Colorado Springs, and you've gotten Bender and a lot of the other people dialed in, Zadig. I don't know who all's up there now, but I do know that you guys have done a terrific job in Colorado Springs, and you've been leading the way, and I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you, Coach. And, I didn't get a chance to wrestle for you coming out of high school, but obviously had plenty of opportunities to wrestle for you on the international circuit at the Pan Am, my first Pan Am's, World Championship, Olympic Games. You were in my corner at in all of those events. And, me and Mark Cody me and Mark Coleman and other athletes will always talk about, going to war with Coach Douglas. Douglas always had us ready to go to war, and not just from a verbal standpoint. I've seen you on many occasions go chest to chest with officials at the highest level. So we always appreciated your fight and knew that you would fight for us in that corner, and that was an added advantage for us to have great success. So thank you for that.
No, you're more than welcome, more than deserving, and your family has made great sacrifices to help you get to where you're at, and I hope that they're not left out of this. They've done a tremendous job of supporting you, and I don't want to talk about family so much because many of them have passed on, but I'm proud not only to have been an American wrestler, I'm proud to have been an American wrestling coach and an official in every part of wrestling that I was involved in. I'm very proud of that and always will be.
Right on, Coach. I'd be remiss to not bring up Bobo, your son. It's almost felt like, wherever you've gone, Bobo's been a part of that program, part of that team, the way he supported the athletes and the coaching staff, and always coming up to the wrestling room and watching practice and being around. And so I know there's several athletes out there and former athletes of yours that are now coaches that want to know how Bobo's doing.
Well, Bobo's doing fine. He's still with us, and probably always will be. He's been one of my assistant coaches. Jackie's been the other one. But we've had a good life in wrestling. It always could have been better, but I'm certainly satisfied for the role that I played and all the people that I've met. And it's been a wonderful world. America's the greatest wrestling country in the world, and not a lot of people know that. But we would have won many, many, many more medals had the officials not been in the Russians and the Soviets and the Bulgarians' pocket. And we had a great setback with some supporters for wrestling, and we had a war going on with the AAU that held us back. But hey, I think the best is yet to come. I hope you can stay involved in it. And if you do stay involved in it, I think you could take them beyond the top.
Thank you, Coach. Let's talk about you a little bit more, Coach, your history. How'd you get involved in wrestling?
I started wrestling when I was a real young kid, about 5 or 6 years old. We wrestled on the grass, and we were poor. We didn't have toys to play with, so we played cops and robbers and made our own pistols out of sticks. And our toys were our playmates. And I had a lot of support in my community because we were coal miners, and coal miners' kids didn't have a lot. But we were a happy family. There were things that we weren't always well fed, but we were always well disciplined. And I came from Ohio, and when you come through that Buckeye wrestling program, you've done something. And I'm very proud of that. I had a great high school coach named George Kovalik that was like a father to me, and he passed away, and his wife was like a mother to me. And I still stay in touch with her. She's got dementia now and is suffering a little bit. I haven't talked to her. I'm almost afraid when the telephone rings that it's going to be news that I don't want to hear, but we all go through that. But Yeah, brings tears to my eyes to think about them.
I feel you, Coach. I feel you. Sounds like Coach Cavallis had you prepared to wrestle at the next level, to go on and compete collegiately. You started your collegiate career at West Liberty State College, and but then you transferred to Oklahoma State. What led you to that move?
Well, in 1963, I went overseas with the American wrestling team. We were the first wrestling team to go behind the Iron Curtain. And Myron Roderick was the freestyle coach, and Dick Torrio was the Greco coach. I made the Greco team. I didn't make the freestyle team. And while I was overseas with Coach Roderick, he recruited me to Oklahoma State. He told me I wanted to be Olympic champion, and he told me if I came to Oklahoma State, there was a guy out there that by the name of Yojiro Wataki Obata and Tadaki Hata, and if I could stay in the room with them for a year, I would make the Olympic team. He was right. Those guys coached me and trained me, and I was able to make the team.
And so was that when you really realized that you could compete at the international level and contend for world gold medals?
I actually went to the World Championships in Toledo, Ohio in 1961 as an observer, and I watched those guys, and I thought, you know what, I think I can do that. I think I could beat some of these guys. As a matter of fact, I always thought I could beat everybody, but I looked at those guys and I felt like I could compete with them. I don't know why. But I always felt like I could compete with anybody. But yeah, that World Championships in Toledo, Ohio, really burned in my mind a desire to be Olympic champion.
Right on. Definitely could compete with all of them, Coach. 303 of them fell, so definitely can compete with all of those guys. What made you a great athlete? What allowed you to have the success that you had? And you know, we haven't talked about your collegiate career. Obviously, I think I know, and I don't know if a lot of people know, that it was a disappointing senior year for you. You were injured going into that national NCAA championship, and someone that you had beaten your conference championship, I believe, athlete from Iowa State, ended up winning the championship. Can you talk a little bit about going through that process?
Well, I went to Oklahoma State, and making a team at Oklahoma State was harder than winning the national tournament. But I made the team and won the Big 8 championships, beat Verl Long for the third time. I beat him, and then I went to the national tournament in Laramie, Wyoming, and got injured in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I was seeded number one. DeVito from Southern Illinois. I did arm drag double leg tackle, turned his body, and he was exposed, and I went in head first and hit his knee. And 3 days later, I woke up in the hospital, asked him questions, and the tournament was over. I had gotten a severe concussion, finished the match, won the match, don't remember anything about it, but when I woke up, I was dazed for probably a week or so. I didn't know where I was, and I finally realized that I didn't win the NCAA tournament. And they showed me the film.
I'm sorry.
They showed me the film, and I did an arm drag double leg, turned him, and his feet stayed in stationary, but his body turned, and I went in real hard head first, trying to spear him, and hit his knee with my head. I saw that on the film, and I know exactly what happened. I remember it felt like somebody hit me over the head with a baseball bat, but I don't remember anything for the next 2 or 3 days. I couldn't remember anything. I finally, after they got me back in got me back in Ohio. I recuperated, recovered, and went on to make the world team and the Olympic team. And I was always trying to get my hands on Verl Long again, but I never did.
Coach, I'm going to go off script a little bit. And, you said you didn't get that opportunity because you got injured. And we had several athletes this year, not only wrestlers, but from all walks of sports, not getting an opportunity to participate in their national championship. What advice would you have for those collegians that didn't get that opportunity, feel like it was taken from them and or basically lost to them? What advice would you have for those athletes that didn't have the opportunities to compete for an NCAA championship?
Hold on to your dreams. That's one opportunity that has passed. But hold on to your dreams. There will be other opportunities, and there's a expression, 4 things come not back: the spoken word, sped arrow, time spent, and a neglected opportunity. Don't neglect any opportunities. Those were words that I put up on my wall in my dorm room. Those are words that I put in all my books, and I always use that because it motivated me. It's, as you know, it's not easy to lose. You've lost some great matches. I've lost some great matches. All wrestlers lose eventually. I only know of 1 or 2 wrestlers that never lost. And those wrestlers were, they were at a time when America dominated wrestling. It was a totally different story, and that's going back a ways. But the current wrestlers that we have now are the greatest athletes that America's ever produced. You won't find any of them will work harder than Dan Gable. You won't find any of them that'll be faster than Bobby Douglas, stronger than Kevin Jackson, and I can go on and on. But America has an ingredients of competition that's built into its athletes that's very unique. As you know, when you fly the colors out there, nobody understands that but you. And you've experienced it. I've experienced it. Gable's experienced it. Many Americans have experienced it. And there are some of the finest young talent that I've ever seen now on the chart for greatness. Some very good. There's some juniors out there that are outstanding. There's some seniors out there that are outstanding.
I remember the motto, fly the colors. I carry it to me to this day and share it with our age group athletes. And, fly the colors means, stand on top of that podium and hear the national anthem and see that flag be raised in the best event in the world. And that's World Championships and Olympic Games. And so you definitely, in my career, always emphasize the part that I would play in history because of competing in this event, and always stressed go out there and use your talents and tools and take advantage of this great opportunity that you have. And I know you've done that for all of your athletes. But Coach, as a coach that was a great athlete and a great coach, what's it take to beat the Russians, man? What's it take to beat the Russians consistently?
Well, we have to stay on top of the rules and utilize the rules in our best interest. Our athletes are the best in the world, but we oftentimes don't have the ability to dominate so that the referees and the officials can't take the match away from you. There's something that has not changed. Now that was, to me, what motivated me more than anything else, and that's why I said, hey, there's one thing you can't stop. You can't stop conditioning. And the better our conditioning got, the more dominant we became. So what did they do? They cut down on the time of the matches. Matches used to be 12 minutes. They cut it down to, what is it now, 6?
Yeah, 6 minutes, 2 3-minute periods.
Yeah. Well, no one knows better than you and the guys that were on the 92 team and the 96 team. Nobody knows better.
You know as well as anyone. You were on the coaching staff during that time, and we wrestled under, I think, in my 6 years at the World Championship level, Olympic level. I think we had 5 different rules. We wrestled under 5 different rules at the Olympic Games and World Championships. I remember after Olympic trials, the rules changed from the Olympic trials to the Olympic Games, and so you're absolutely right with the change of rules on multiple occasions. And I know we've talked about this before, and I think I've heard people say that our American system or NCAA system should be a freestyle one, and we dominate. And I think for the most part we could see that side of it. But I always felt like if we would have went to a freestyle system 20 years ago, we wouldn't have the fan base now that we have at the NCAA tournaments, because the rules changed too many times. If you were Olympic champion in 96 and you showed up to a world championship or Olympic games in 2005, 2006, you wouldn't even know how the athlete is winning in a tied match. I think that would have hurt us as a nation if we would have went to freestyle back in those days. The rules are good now, but at the same time, you're right. There were several changes, and there were definitely reasons behind those changes.
I agree with you 100%, Coach. I agree with you. And as long as the Europeans control the rules, America's going to have to struggle. We're not going to win just by being the best wrestler out there. We're going to have to be not only the best wrestler, we're going to have to be the smartest wrestler, the best conditioned wrestler, and we're going to have to fight like hell.
Well, I remember you saying too, Coach, first of all, the conditioning is one thing, but one thing that we have to do as Americans competing against Russians, and they're all from that Russian-based system for the most part, Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan, and the countries that are powers within the wrestling world right now. We're going to have to also match skills technically, and talk a little bit about that as well.
Well, right now I'm watching on my telephone. I can watch matches, so I can see now what the coach is talking about, because I can watch my opponent not just wrestle me, but I can watch him wrestle other wrestlers. And watching those films, I was very, very, very good student at watching the films. I studied the films, and I also had a feel when another wrestler touched me, I could read his mind. And coaching was a little bit different. I couldn't read the feel, but I could observe. And I not only watched those wrestlers while they were out on the mat, I tried to watch them warm up. I tried to watch them drill. I tried to watch them do everything so that I had an idea of what they were capable of doing. The one thing that you can't tell as a coach, you can't tell their strength. You can't tell their flexibility. You can see it, and you can't tell their intelligence, and you can't tell how competitive, what's their heart, what's in their heart. You can't tell that. But you can always try to prepare your wrestler for that guy, saying things to him that he doesn't want to hear you telling him, hey, that guy, I saw him running 6 o'clock this morning, or I saw him in the weight room and he was busting his butt, or hey, this guy, he isn't going to give up. He's going to try to break you. Those are all key words to motivate. No wrestler wants to hear you tell him this guy's better than me, or this guy's going to whoop your butt, or this guy's fast. Wrestlers, I didn't like to hear it. It motivated me. I don't know if it motivated all the guys that I talked to, but I tried to use that because we were the best conditioned wrestlers in the world. We were the best physically gifted wrestlers in the world. Now, there were others out there that were just as gifted physically and mentally. The problem was they had a 10-year start on us as far as training was concerned. They started their training in elementary school. We didn't start our training until we got to college. That was a big, big difference.
I feel you. Coach, I don't think there's been another coach that has coached more athletes from diverse backgrounds, cultures, race, from all walks of life, from Dave Schultz to Zeke Jones to Chris Campbell to Dan St. John to Eddie Urbano. I just don't think there's been a coach that's touched more lives that spanned what our country looks like than you have, and had success with all of those guys. Can you just share with myself, other coaches around the country, that when you have athletes of different personalities, maybe even motivated by different things, training habits are different. The volume of work they can handle is different. Can you just share with us from your experience what you did to get those athletes to reach their true potential?
Well, I was trained as a school teacher, and perhaps the greatest physical education school in America, Oklahoma State. I had a teacher by the name of Melissa Coleman. They named a building after her at Oklahoma State. She was a great teacher. She taught me how to teach. And as we were going through that student teaching phase, we had some tough courses. That education program at Oklahoma State's tough. You can look back at the many coaches that have come out of there, but Melissa Coleman, she worked us. She made us put together a handbook on how we were going to teach. In order to graduate, you had to present that handbook. Not only did you have to give her the handbook, she had to approve it. I got a C+ on my handbook, which I thought mine was good. That was my first wrestling book, that handbook that I did for my student teaching. I was motivated by the environment. When you walked around Oklahoma State University, wrestling room, Gallagher Hall, the walls were painted with the great athletes, and most of the great athletes were wrestlers. And I was really proud to be a part of that organization. When I went to Toledo, Ohio for the national championships, and I saw all those great European wrestlers, world and Olympic champions, I was motivated. I was highly motivated. I was around a coach and an environment. George Kovalik was my coach. He was like a father to me. He put me in situations where I was motivated, where I got motivated. That was part of the physical education program that he got at Kent State University. Now, Kent State University is a great educational institution. What they were able to do went all over Ohio. One of the way they taught football, the way they taught baseball, the way they taught basketball, the way they taught wrestling. That was why Ohio was so great. That Kent State University crew of students that came through there made the state of Ohio great. Not only Ohio, but Notre Dame. They had a bunch of Ohio coaches who went to Notre Dame. But what happened with me, Kevin, was I was placed by God in the right place at the right time with the right people, and I was a good student. I could never get too much of watching films on wrestling, on football, on baseball. I watched those films, and I watched and I listened, and I learned. I was a good student, and I was motivated. I was motivated by the people that I was around. one thing you got to remember, in '92, we were around, and when I say we, you were there. We were around perhaps the greatest group of American wrestlers of all times. There's no greater group that's ever been gathered than that group. And there was something about the environment wasn't good. Foxcatcher's place wasn't good, but just being around you guys, it rubbed off. I knew you guys were going to destroy those Russians because of the motivation you had. And there were things that I did to motivate that guys didn't understand. I needled some guys, telling them they weren't working hard enough when they were killing themselves trying. Telling them about that Russian is working harder than you, or that Bulgarian's working harder than you. Those were things that I did. I knew it upset the athletes, but sometimes when you upset an athlete, he works a lot harder. He's going to prove it to you, and that happened.
Right on, Coach. Yeah, you spoke a little bit about Foxcatcher and DuPont, and I know we've had several conversations about that. And you know, when Mr. DuPont got into the sport, you know, obviously losing Dave, never replace him. But what effects do you think he had on our sport of wrestling?
Well, he had some bad, and he had some good. He took care of a lot of American wrestlers and provided finances for them to train. That was the good part. He brought Jordanov over, who to me I didn't like that, but Jordanov, Dave Schultz, and those guys at Foxcatcher, they learned some things from Jordanov. I don't know what you learned from him, but it wasn't that I didn't like him. It was just the fact that he was a coach from another team. And I didn't like that part of him being around our wrestlers. But what I gathered from that experience at Foxcatcher, I watched you train. I watched Smith train. I watched Mundy train. I watched all of you guys train, and I tried to find out what is that thing that makes the difference. And there is no way that you can teach what you guys had. It's inside of you. It comes from a deep, deep desire to be great. And that's the only way I can explain it. And when you put a lot of great guys together, great things happen. And that's what happened. I mean, Dave Schultz was a tremendous influence on you guys. Dave Schultz was a scientist of wrestling. Mark Schultz, he was a hard guy to wrestle. He didn't train real hard, but he's a hard guy to wrestle. And you know, some guys you go out there and wrestle with for 2 or 3 minutes, and it's like wrestling these other guys for 20 minutes. But it was, if you put the right people in the right place at the right time, you get the right results, and that's the right principle. And there's no way you can pick a guy out of a group and say he's going to be the best. There's no way. You got to watch him work. You've got to watch him develop. You've got to watch him get motivated, and in order for them to reach their full potential, it helps if they're around the right people.
Right on, Coach. Coach, just about you, your coaching career. You won a national championship with Arizona State in '88. You had teams that over the next couple of years placed in the top 3. I think they were second over the next 2 years. In 1992, you decided to come to Iowa State. What led you to that move?
Well, Arizona State did not want to hire a full-time assistant wrestling coach. And I couldn't do it by myself anymore. And also, Sunkiss was upset with the administration at Arizona State. And Sunkiss they were helping Oklahoma State, and Oregon State, and Arizona State. I thought, he's an alumni, Art Martori's an alumni from Arizona State. He's going to want to see us be the best. But he wanted to help all those other schools, because at the time they were dropping wrestling in Pac-10. And I think I can't speak for Art. He did what he thought was right. What I thought was right to help Arizona State so we could dominate. And he was thinking along a different line. But it's hard to put your finger on any one thing that made us great. But one thing for sure, we had great athletes. The other thing for sure is we had great assistants. If you get great athletes, great assistants, the only thing you need is great support. We were a little short-handed in the support area. The administration didn't see how important it was. They were shocked when we won a national title. Not only were they shocked, I think everybody was shocked. But we were going to win a few more national titles at Arizona State had we have been given the right resources, and the administration had the desire to do that. But it's hard to win if the people up top aren't trying to win. And you got to look back. They had baseball, they had football, they had great programs in track. And so wrestling wasn't bringing in a whole lot of money, and that was the way wrestling was at the time. But it was that way all over the country. We needed to make some adjustments in our collegiate rules in order to make it more attractive. We also needed to be inclusive. We needed to bring handicap. We needed to bring women, because I looked at what was happening, and I told the athletic director, hey, unless we get women involved, wrestling's going to die. And I knew about that because we went to a FILA clinic, and Ersigan, the president, was pushing hard for women's wrestling, and the French were pushing hard for women's wrestling. And I could see it coming down the road. I told them they're going to put women wrestling in the Olympic Games. It's just a matter of time. And they did. They're going to put women's wrestling in the World Championships. It's just a matter of time. And they did. Now we have to be more diverse, more inclusive, and we have to reward the women like we reward the men.
Right on, Coach. You hit a couple different subjects, questions that I had, follow-up questions that I had. But since you ended on the women, obviously they played a major role in us continuing to have wrestling at the Olympic Games. You've always been a visionary. You've always been about development, especially youth development and development in general. I remember back in the day when you spoke about women's wrestling, and it was not even on a lot of our radar at the time. But how does it all work together? How do you see the next generation? What the focus should be for the next generation, even from a diversity standpoint? You look at the men of color that are Division I coaches. I think we have 3 at the Division I level. Many wrestling teams around the country, the percentage of minorities on their team is pretty low percentage-wise. But how do you see women helping with the development of programs, also the diversity and just our development as a whole, as a country?
Well, women's wrestling is here to stay. Okay, they may as well get used to it. The males that don't like it, the administrators that don't like it, they may as well get used to it. If you get rid of women's wrestling, they'll get rid of wrestling, period. It's only fair that we treat everybody equal. There is no more days of an all-white basketball team. if you look at those basketball teams now, you say they got all black guys on the basketball team. You look at the baseball teams, and at one time there was one or two black players on a baseball team. Now baseball teams have many black players on it. Many of them are Cubans too. But things have changed. Things have changed. Diversity is here to stay. And the more we embrace diversity, the better it is for sports. I don't know if it will take a generation of thinkers like yourself to bring about the change, but we have to have people like you, Kevin, that understand the importance of diversity, inclusiveness. We have to make sure that we understand and can convince those rule makers of the World Wrestling, I don't know what it's now, WW, World Wrestling Federation or whatever, it replaced FILA. Whatever replaced FILA, those guys got to open their eyes and they better bring women into wrestling or they'll be gone. Now, I was told that many, many years ago. If you don't diversify, if you don't get a women's program going, you guys are going to go. And that's true.
Well, I've been happy with UWW and the new president there and what they've managed to do for our sport and the inclusion that with the women getting into the Olympic Games, also with the rule changes and just the changes in general that they've been able to implement and the role that they played with the IOC and in the sport in general. So hopefully that continues to grow. I see it happening that way and definitely look forward to it, to that trend continuing. You also touched on programs being dropped, Coach, and I wanted to touch on that briefly. We're in unprecedented times, right? Recently ODU, a program that's historically very, very popular, All-Americans, and have done a great job throughout their history. Was recently dropped. There's other schools that might be on the bubble with this with the economy doing what it's doing and athletic directors feeling like they have the reasons with resources and finances to drop programs. But I wanted to ask you, what should the role of the wrestling community be when a program is dropped? Where should our voice come from, and what should we be talking about and doing, maybe to preempt it, but also when a program is dropped, what should be our response?
Well, I wish I had the answer, because I think we have responded in almost every way you can possibly respond. You can't start a fight or war. You're not going to win it, because athletic directors will just simply drop the program. You got to hire people that are in decision-making positions. You got to hire the right people so that when they come through the door, they know that you expect them to support all sports. And wrestling is one that has to be pointed out, that we've been neglected, we've been abused, we've been discriminated against, and we can't allow that to continue to happen. You gotta, in order to survive, you gotta hire the right people, the right athletic director. Iowa State's an example. Will Jamie Pollard drop wrestling? I don't think so. But that's Iowa State. Will they drop wrestling over at Iowa City? No, I don't think so. Too powerful of alumni. Will they drop wrestling up at Northern Iowa? I don't think so. Too powerful of an alumni. But when you start looking beyond Iowa and Oklahoma and Pennsylvania, it gets hairy. It gets hairy. There are not a whole lot of athletic directors that like wrestling, first of all, because it impacts their budget. Not only does it impact their budget, they don't like the aggressiveness of the sport. They know how wrestlers acted when they were in high school together. They're afraid of wrestlers. The wrestlers are aggressive. Many of those basketball players realize that you may be 6'8", but those wrestlers may be 5'8", but you don't want to bother them. Let them alone. They're aggressive, and they will get aggressive, and they'll fight. Not physically fight, but they will fight you for what's right. And wrestling deserves to be a part of America's wrestling community. We are the oldest sport on earth. We are and have won more medals than most Olympic sports, with the exception of track and field. Now, in order for wrestling to continue to survive, we must keep you and guys like you around that know the history, that are in a position to fight for wrestling, and that love the sport. There's no other way to do it. We got to keep you guys around. And when I say you guys, Rich Bender, I've always been on Bender, trying to motivate him. Well, he took it as me ragging on him, but I was trying to motivate him. I was trying to get him to do things that only he could do. And I was rough on Bender, because without pushing Bender, what do we have?
I feel you, Coach. Coach, I'm gonna start wrapping us up now. It's been about an hour, and obviously I enjoy our conversations always. You've been a mentor to me. You've been someone that I've always looked to, and there's several things that we never even talked about our history and the things that you forced me to do that was in my best interest, from getting in better shape and putting me on the track, and punishing me for missing the practice here and there. So maybe we'll get another opportunity to really chop that up. But Coach, I've always felt like you may have not gotten the respect you deserve based on the accomplishments of your life. I mean, what you've gone through with your mother, and the things that the way you actually got into the sport, and just your history, the accomplishments that you've had, and the athletes that you've coached. I've always thought that your story should be told to everyone as much as possible, and such great history that you've helped create throughout our time. But I've always thought you didn't get the respect you deserve. But I hope you, and I know you don't look at that at all. But I just really appreciate you more than you know. But I want to give you a chance to, you've always had a great vision. You've always motivated me. You've always put wrestling at the highest level of your work, and just want to give you an opportunity to say anything you want to say as we close out.
Well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to tell a little bit about wrestling history as I know it. My greatest fear is that we lose people like yourself and like Rich Bender. Bender works hard for wrestling, and I know it. I've always teased him. Nothing personal intended, but I've always tried to push him, because he will work hard, and he has worked hard. I think that the best is yet to come. But we have to make sure that we keep guys like you, like Bender, like Strobel, like Zadig. We got to make sure that we can keep you guys involved. Brandon Slay, I don't know what he's doing now, but we need to make sure that we keep a guy. He's a hard worker. The Branses, the Branses and the Smiths and those great collegiate programs. We've got to make sure that we keep those guys and you and your crew involved, or wrestling will surely die.
Well, Coach, I appreciate the time. Your wisdom is second to none. I look forward to talking with you again, maybe in this same venue. But thank you for taking the time. Be safe. I know you're still out there walking the dog and training like you always have. And so thinking about you, praying for your family, and making sure that hopefully you guys are staying safe and having a chance to relax during this unprecedented time.